Lakeside Dental Clinic, Go Island, is brought to you by Lakeside Dental Clinic.
Red lights and roulette, an exhibit here at the Nanaimo Museum that needs a warning. It looks at the history of prostitution and gambling in the Harbor City.
An inspired soda taking off in Arrington. Passion for photography leads to volunteering and time travel with James Green.
There was a red light district in Nanaimo from the 1890s to the 1920s. We're going to have a look at where that was and all of the research that the Nanaimo Museum has put into finding out who ran some of those brothels in that red light district. Also looks at gambling from the 1870s up to current day. All of that coming up later on this edition of Go Island. But we're starting out with the story of a young woman whose battle with an autoimmune disorder led her to creating a business making naturally fermented effervescent drinks, bubbly drinks, I guess you could say, out of fruit and vegetables. Here's Annette Lucas. Island Soda Works Brewtopia is growing so quickly that Mandolin is considering presenting her business to the Dragon's Den here in Nanaimo on February the 20th. Amy Greenaway is with the Nanaimo Museum, and as far as this exhibit goes, Red Lights and Roulette, there were a lot of unanswered questions that you really had to do a lot of research to get the answers to. What was the research phase of this like?
Well, we started researching the exhibit last summer, and there's nothing published about the history of the red light district in Nanaimo. So we started digging into resources that were at the Nanaimo archives, going online, and just trying to recreate the stories of the red light district and the people who live there.
And these really are stories that have been sort of dug up from history for the first time.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
What were you have a census over there?
Yeah, absolutely.
And at first I thought it was a little bit of a jump, like the census though was just the first step.
Yeah, so we looked at the census records and they showed us where there would be a house of, say, 4 women, and the woman who was the head of the house would be usually in her 40s, and there were younger women, late teens, early 20s, also living there, but none of them were related. We'd heard local history that there was a red light district. We knew the approximate area. We had the census records to tell us that there weren't families living in these houses. And so the next step, we went to the police commission minutes, and the police commission supervised the police department, and they have all sorts of information listing addresses of known brothels and huge amounts of information about police enforcement and the community response to the red light district. Once we had all that, we knew we had addresses which confirmed the names that we had from the census, and we started basically doing genealogy research. So we tried to find birth records, death records, wills, any kind of information that would help us recreate the stories of the lives of the women who lived in the red light district.
Wow, it's pretty fascinating. If I ever need to find anybody, I think I'm going to come to see you. And if I've got any sort of dark secrets in my family's past, I want to make sure that it's very well covered, because it could end up in display in the museum here one day. We're going to look at where the red light district was specifically in Nanaimo, and then I'll look at gambling and its history in the Harbor City as well. Time now for a short break.
Still to come, turning passion into help for a favorite charity, hanging out with the sapsuckers in Ladysmith, and where would you travel in time?
Hi, my name is Alexander Reyes, and I'm a local musician here in Nanaimo, BC. I'm going to be performing for the Black History Month here in Nanaimo. Did you know that Emily Stark was one of the first black teachers in the Cranberry District on August 1st, 1874?
And did you know, of course you do by now, that February is Black History Month nationally, and there are lots of celebrations taking place right here in Nanaimo thanks to the Nanaimo African Heritage Society. Live Out Loud coming up on February the 13th, 7 o'clock. I haven't been able to find a venue, but there's a phone number you can call, 250-619-8560. And then on February the 20th, a big reggae festival taking place at the Port Theatre. You can get your tickets through the Port Theatre Ticket Center, a 7 o'clock show there. there. Go online, www.NanaimoAfricanHeritageSociety.com for more information on all the events taking place throughout the month of February. We're going to throw things over now to Kelly Robinson, spending some time with a young volunteer photographer. To get an idea of where Nanaimo's red light district was, we're looking at a map from 1881, and there are streets that don't exist anymore, is that right? Where was the district?
Well, some of the streets have changed. So Fraser Street is still in Nanaimo today, but it used to start at Wallace Street, go down the hill, and basically went right up to Comox today. So what we would see today is actually Terminal Avenue.
Okay, and then this is a picture of what today's Terminal Avenue looked back then when it was Fraser Street.
Exactly.
Wow.
So these are houses on Fraser Street from a photograph we have in the museum collection, and in the background is a map that's called a fire insurance map from the archives, and it shows the footprint of houses, so it's helped us match which house was which and to put an address to them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think we're meeting the lady who knows the most about this city. We're going to look into the history of gambling in Nanaimo, all part of Red Lights and Roulette, running at the Nanaimo Museum until May the 1st. We're going to head down to Ladysmith before we do that, though. It is maple sugar season, if we can call it that, and Kevin Chirac is hanging out with the sapsuckers. And that's Kevin, just hanging out with the sapsuckers in Ladysmith. The 14th annual Maple Sugar Festival is coming to Nanaimo February 13th to 14th. Food, entertainment, music. It's a multicultural, multilingual event for the entire family. You can get full details on times and headliners and all that cool stuff online, francophonenanaimo.org. And just another note on Black History Month, there are some celebrations as part of the month-long celebration that is Black History that is partnering with the Maple Sugar Festival. Easy for me to say. We're going to be back with more after a short break. Red Lights and Roulette, running at the Nanaimo Museum until May the 1st, has a section on gambling that looks at the period 1870s up until now. Now, back in the 1800s, Amy, there was no gambling that was legal.
That's right. It wasn't until the 60s in Canada that there was actually licensed gambling that was regulated. So most of the gambling that happened in Nanaimo before that was happening in private residences, in social clubs, saloons, hotels. There was even one complaint of gambling happening in a candy store.
Now, there were 3 charges that you could be accused of, I guess, and what were they?
They were roughly keeping a gaming house. So if you were the person that organized the game, the people who were gambling, but it was also an offense to be observing gambling.
Okay, now in the research that you did through the museum, it was very, there was a lot for you to comb through with the red light section and the prostitution history in Nanaimo, but very different with the gambling. How so?
We found that there was just different types of records that we had access to. So we spent a lot of time looking in the police commission minutes, trying to find records of there being a gambling house that was shut down, looking in jail records to see who was committed of gambling related offenses. But because gambling was happening in so many different places, it was difficult to pinpoint people and locations the same way that we could with the red light district, because it was the same houses in the same area, and once we found those addresses, it was easy for us to find the people.
Excellent. Okay, it's a very well-researched exhibit running here at the museum until May the 1st. As we look back into the history of red lights and roulette in Nanaimo, we're also taking a walk back and forward in time on the streets of Victoria. Here's James Green. I don't know what year I would travel back to, maybe 1877. This is a gaol or jail book, entries to people who were picked up off the street for various activities in 1877. And this guy here was arrested for gambling. And I think it's really interesting, the information that they would take down back then. You'd have your name, your age, your trade, your religion, your condition, and by that they meant whether you were single or married. I didn't know that was a condition. What country you're from, what the offense was. This guy was being present in gambling activities. What the sentence was, he was dismissed with costs. And it doesn't say how many costs he was charged for that. I love the penmanship, but it is kind of hard to read. That brings us to the end of this edition of Go Island, Red Lights and Roulette at the museum here until May the 1st. Thanks for watching Go. We'll see you next time. I wonder if I've got any family members in this book anywhere. Probably.
Lakeside Dental Clinic Go Island is brought to you by Lakeside Dental Clinic, a division of the Vancouver Island Implant Center, delivering dental services, including dental implants and sedation dentistry, all under one roof. Clothing supplied by Catwalk Fashions. Kate's Hair and Aesthetics provided by Maffeo Salon.